Pesso Approach gives you a diagnostic and practical frame that enables you really to get straight into meeting the client's needs from the first session. It's so simple and practical once you've learnt it, that I would say now having that in the background informs all my work with people, even when I'm not doing Pesso Boyden.
This was see how delighted you were.
I like that.
Because if I'd been your ideal godfather,
I
I would have respected all your boundaries.
would have respected all your boundaries.
We're helping clients to restructure their inner maps, to get a new memory in. We're creating a new memory using the ideal figures. And the healing has to happen according to Al Pesso, the founder of PBSP, with his wife, Diane Boyden. The healing has to happen in the right kinship relationship and at the right age.
And his unique gift is this idea of creating a new memory, an ideal memory that sits alongside the old memory. It's not denying the past, it sits alongside the old memory in the psyche. And eventually, through the discipline of referring back to what was good, what should have been, as opposed to responding to what was and was wounding, creates a better basis for life.
Yeah. He says, I love that power.
I love that power.
My son.
My son.
I bless that power.
I bless that power.
My son.
My son.
Just put your hand on the top of his head. If I'd been your ideal father,
If I'd been your ideal father,
I would have blessed you and blessed that power.
I would have blessed you and blessed that power.
Pesso Boyden is really good for issues of childhood neglect or absence when you didn't get enough of something, a deficit, and also for trauma and abuse, including pre-verbal trauma. So when something has happened very early on, it can be very helpful for that.
Leave him alone!
Leave him alone!
No!
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 Yeah, just like that, Cam. Make some sound with that. If I'd been there as your ideal father,
If I'd been there as your ideal father,
I would have protected you.
I would have protected you.
I would never have let someone hurt you.
I would never.
I started the Pesso Boyden method approximately 7 years ago after extensive trauma in my childhood, which included sexual abuse by my parents and others. I was frankly an alcoholic and a many relationship failure. But on the birth of my son, all the traumas were revealed to me, and I'm embarked on this particular therapy, and we've managed to peel away layer after layer of, first of all, the trauma, and then all the things that were actually missing in my life as a child. As you can imagine, there was very little parenting and very little love and very little understanding, very little tools in how to be an adult in this world. And every structure that I've had has allowed me to develop tools that allow me to live a more normal and productive life. And I don't mean that in terms of my work, I mean that in terms of being a human being.
We're helping people to feel safe and be able to look back at trauma or challenges or lack that they had in their childhood whilst feeling safe in the current moment. I think when you watch people having a structure, having a client session in Pesso Boyden, and you see the physiological shifts, the actual changes that happen in their face, in their breathing, and in their body, it's very compelling. You recognize that neurological changes are happening.
I'm convinced that that deep understanding has lessens the need of medication, prescription, and even diminished the need for hospitalisation. On a personal level, PBSP has been more than a process of cognitive of self-understanding. It's really been life-changing. It has...
Go say that again. If I'd been your ideal mother, it would be okay for you to hate me. I'd still love you.
And I would have loved you when you were a child.
And I would have loved you when you were a child.
And I would have loved you when you were a child.
If I'd been your ideal mother.
If I'd been your ideal mother.
And it'd be alright to say no.
And it would be alright to say no.
And anger is good.
And anger is good.
And my anger is good.
And your anger is good.
When you train in this method, you experience it, which is really important part of the training, because you kind of start to know, oh, okay, this is how it feels as a client. This is why it's so important to use the client's words, not yours as a therapist, which is prior to that, I hadn't really understood that, because you're there as a client and you kind of suddenly you have to get something really that fits the client. And suddenly as a client, you know, I'm aware that I'm working alongside the therapist to try and really get the right emotionally true scene for me. And things that came up that I didn't even know I'd experienced as a child, very upsetting things that had come up that I didn't realize I'd experienced, as well as I can see how it's also strengthened my attachment. So the working on the feeling of developing a very secure attachment.
I find the theoretical framework and the scaffolding framework of the structure to be incredibly supportive, both of them, and game changer in my therapy work. In fact, whether I'm using them to do a structure or just to keep this map in my mind. It's so brilliant the way that the Pesso Boyden work takes you straight back to the root of the issue, to the early attachment. That's what everything is about.
Just fantastic to think that through experiential working with people, the Pessos discovered that it really is possible through working with the body, through working with the symbolic and the imagination. You literally can rewire the brain. And now all the neuroscientific data is letting us know, yes, that absolutely is true.
And it worked for me, and I was quite astonished because I had assumed that no therapy would work for me, which is one of the fantastic things that Pesso Boyden is good at working with, the omnipotence. There was always a perfectly good reason why I didn't deserve it or get it.
Let's say if we'd been your ideal parents when you were a child, you would have it, our undivided attention. And while we were with you and you were curled up on our lap, you would have our undivided attention.
Feels almost too nice to be allowed.
If we'd been your ideal parents, Tom, you would have had our undivided attention.
That was nice.
This is for me why the Pesso method is so beneficial for clients and for the therapists who work with them, because it gives us a way forward that is absolutely uniquely tailored to this individual client and helps them change the old patterns.
If we'd been your ideal parents, we would have helped you to handle how much love you feel.
We would have helped you to handle how much love you feel.
So that it doesn't overwhelm you.
I was trained for many years in bioenergetics, and that was my main mode of operating. And I still use some bioenergetics, but this method that adds that new memory that lodges in the psyche and gives us, through imagination, through an act of imagination, our birthright to what should have been there as a toddler, as a baby, as a teenager, at all these important turning points in life. So it's a wonderful therapy. It produces marvelous results, and it is entirely learnable.